I certainly wouldn't describe it as evil. I think it's an architecture that provides the reader to bring his or her own torments or discoveries or intimacies to light. I don't know. I think in many ways the house amplifies your worst and your best instincts. So as much as that there's darkness to be found in the house, there's also light as well. The project was so massive that at a certain point it was impossible to have any expectations about it. It was impossible to think outside of the book. I was simply orbiting its gravity, its mass. Always. There are always ghosts behind the ghosts. They're the obvious spirits that we think we understand or we suspect are nearby, and then there are those ghosts that are behind the ghosts. And I think those are the ones that interest me most. We can be. I think that's one of the importance of literature, all literature, is that it helps strip away those illusions. It helps us see life more clearly. Technology is neutral. It can be used to your benefit or to your detriment, and it's simply about one's personal relationship to how you balance its prominence in your life. If you depend too much on it, then you're probably losing sight of the world out there. But technology can certainly help facilitate a better relationship with the world as well. The only thing I can say is that House of Leaves has grown up. It's a creature now unto itself, and it has very, very private and personal relationships with people that I am no longer privy to. In many ways, it's like my child. It's grown up, it's older, and doesn't really want dad hanging around, and I have no business telling anyone else what my kid is up to. So I think one of the forms that I'm least interested in is the memoir, and it's the story that professes to be a true story that is based on facts. I think the power of literature is that by saying from the get-go that this isn't real, it also alerts the reader that there is a way through this portal into something that's far more real. It can reveal within ourselves that which is true, because every piece of literature is false. It can't be a true story. Language itself is a squirrely thing that is outside of reality, and the more we recognize that, the more we'll be able to strip away those illusions, face reality directly, face this atomic foam that consumes us and limits us, and in that way get a little bit closer to the world that matters. I think if this was you're asking a question that was asked 15 years ago. My publisher even said, we're going to sell very few copies of this book. We like it, but it really can't have an audience out there. And now it's been translated into a dozen languages. I meet kids who read it in a weekend. I met a young woman last night in Madrid who'd read it in a day. I mean, it was I think the challenges are personal. Some people's challenges are really, we have little friends here. Some of the challenges are are really based on the limitations that you impose upon yourself. You know, because sometimes people think that they have to read a book a certain way, and that can make it a troubling experience to encounter House of Leaves. But if you just trust yourself, you know, you read what's important, forget about the stuff that's unimportant, then you will have a very personal experience with the book. I think the main thing is I just spend a long time on each book. House of Leaves took me 10 years. Only Revolutions took me over 6. I've been working on The Familiar for 8 years now, and that's a 27-volume novel about a little girl that finds a kitten. So it's a process of time and not being afraid to constantly revisit the material, change the material, and develop it into something that's meaningful. I mean, certainly I had the pleasure of being at the Picasso Museum in Barcelona, and just to look at the studies there that Picasso would carry out, to look at various lightings and various volumes and geometries. I mean, it's similar tradition. Well, these days I have a massive pine tree outside of my window that's shaped like a trident, and I believe it's Poseidon's trident. And so he rules over the underworld that surrounds me. So it's a combination of green and black. Well, House of Leaves itself contains all of its influences and the books that were important to me. But recently, I've loved the books by Amy Bender and Sarah Bynum. They keep me company. They inspire me, and they have just enough disrespect for reality to be much more real in themselves than reality. I think just getting away from things that profess to be reality. Reality is a very complicated subject. I mean, you can look at the Large Hadron Collider and realize how many billions and billions of euros and how many thousands and thousands of hours were put together to create this huge facility just to look at a tiny particle of what is considered reality.